Hello, welcome. Both times. The Agdom is of this. We always have a mahalach. Now I'm speaking. I have a mahalach that before every sheet I'm going to say shtikl drusha b'deir chalamet, few minutes, and then we learn the sheet. That's since last week in Bar Park there's this mahalach. Why is there this mahalach? Because Naftchalim visits learning also. But you can't only learn that, so we're trying to make a shidduch. And the same thing in my zone. By the way, not it's very important, but otherwise it's meta, so you can't be busy with that all the time. But I have to do a little bit of it to make explicit what I'm doing. Really, the way to learn it is just from doing it, but sometimes the chapnish. And that's why we do it. What did I want to say? I don't remember. Okay, so what I wanted to say was like this. I forgot what I wanted to say. Sorry. Did I need a tea? Maybe that's one. I don't remember. Kitzur Amasa.
No.
Hab's gewollt sagen. Mach mal weiß. Always have to say something before.
Why you switched the plan?
Yeah, okay, so I don't remember what I wanted to say about this. What I want to say is like this. So we are learning here. This is a shir. This is a shir. Okay. Now, medrash called beis medrash in lemachshava, and the plan was like this. There was a very specific plan. The plan was like this. It had two parts. Part number one is that there's going to be a certain format how it's going to be presented, which means something like if the format is centered around something like a curriculum. Because my basic idea was that there's something called, in some broad, undefined, and weirdly called sense, Jewish philosophy, or Machshevet Israel, which there was a lot of shirim about how this definition doesn't make sense and so on, but there's still such a thing. And I want to learn it and teach it. Learn it together with other people, however you want to say it. And my thought was that the best way to learn it and to study it was b'derech shel sigyas, which means that there's all kind of subjects like question, what is the soul, what is the Torah, is there ashgucha prutis, all kind of sigyas like that. Maybe there's 10, 15 of them, sachakol. And we can learn each sigya, and we can learn in each sigya, Shittas Rambam, Shittas Ramban, Shittas Rav Tzaddik, Shittas Baal Shem Tov, Shittas Havel Negun, and so on, and we can understand what's going on, because that's a very important thing to understand. On this, we're all messed up, right? That was my plan, and therefore it was both going to be organized in the sense of like a course about Hashgacha according to all kind of shittas, a course about Brias Oilam according to all kind of shittas, a course about the existence of God according to all kind of shittas, yeah, and so on. And so it's courses, and it's the way it's organized is around this this structure of sigyas subject. Okay, that was the plan, and that went on for about 4 years. Basically, what we did, and sort of something like every 3 or 4 months, or sometimes more, sometimes less, we changed to a new subject. Not because we finished the subject, no such thing as finishing subjects, but because a course can't run for longer than that. Now, during through the learning, what happened was like this. What happened? You know what happened? This next story happened.
What happened was that we realized we need enough. I feel like me needed enough background and preliminary questions answered before learning was possible.
Okay, what happened to me also, not just to you. What happened was, like there's a yisod from Mrs. Collard that says like this, that Shiva is impossible. Not Shiva, Kabbalist Toivas are impossible. You know Agnes Collard's book on becoming, what's it called?
Aspiration?
Aspiration. Exactly. Shiva is nicht möglich. In other words, Ayit steht Yom Kippur. This is one of my drushes. 1 year I gave Yom Kippur drush, I'll be Agnes Collard. Ayit steht, but it's basically our style. She's just organizing very ancient thoughts. Ayit steht Yom Kippur and says, Rabbi, some good to see, I'm going to be better. And as then Chanukah time, right about now, right? Noch Kashvan, all that Kabbalah Yom Kippur already deep in the garbage. They were all a lie. So the kasha, what's going on? Every year, man. The ganze Welt is Meshiga. I remember when I was in Yeshiva Ketana, there was a bucher that told me, whatever. It's Verstein Alliance. The bucher came said, you know, and Rishtuni was makabel that is going to have in Zin, all the brochas, Shem Havai, Toto Kavuni, you have to be mechaven, whatever it says in Shechanurach and the Siddur. And he's going to be mechaven it. And he thinks that Chanukah, by the third brocha, he forgot. But other than that, out machkav. Never Chana, yeah? Mechab. And noch shows gewachsen going to Shana, don't worry. I don't know. I'm not even remembering exactly what it was. But okay. The kid said, that's not how it actually works. This was a chichidus gila, that's a true story, but generally that's not how it works. So the question is, why doesn't it work? So says Mrs. Kal, that it doesn't work. Why? Because it's like the story of the Mendelem at the Balatanya, right? You know the mass with the Mendel and the Balatanya, right? The Mendel had a docker, and the Mechinner Mendel from Vitebsk, was Zugang zu Atoraisu, weil zum Teure. And he was standing by the Umed, and he was standing there. And nu, Atoraisu, der steht dort. So Rav Shnei Zalman had verstanden what's going on. He was officially his Rebbe, you know, the politic. But anyways, he went over to him and he told him, that's not what's going on. He told him, look, listen, like, why can't I say Atoraisu? Because when I went to the Umed, I understood 100 Perishim on Atoraisu Ladaski Hashem Elikim. But I wasn't massing them yet, I didn't internalize them yet. How could I say it if I understand something but I'm not internalizing it? So I'm waiting, trying to, to get into this 100 Perishim, and then I'll say it. Let me tell you a secret. After you're going to figure out these 100 Perishim, you're going to see another 100. So you can. What am I trying to say? How am I learning this story today? There's a story from Rachman about this problem, How am I learning this story today? The problem with Mikabulas Toives is that you, as the person that didn't do Tshiva, and you as the person that did Tshiva, are two different people. Lowy the Rebbe zok masher roim mi po lo roim mi sham. Thus, the kind of how your life works, or how your soul works, or what kind of a person you are when you're a good person, or after you achieve some level of accomplishment, and before, are not the same people. So how could you promise that you're going to be a good person? You don't even know what a good person is. How could you have to be a good person to become a good person? And as long as you're not doing the work of becoming a good person, you have no idea what that is even. So what's the Kabbalah about? Therefore, I don't remember if she has a solution. She basically says that it's impossible.
No, she says the method is by aspiration, or by going from a vague...
This is the... Right.
Going from a vague sense
I feel that you have to have a Rebbe, but anyways, even the Rebbe, how do you don't understand the Rebbe, so you get at the same loop. But it's still true that a Rebbe is a solution to this, but today we learned that in the Zohar,
Rebbe, which sense?
You wanted me to learn Zohar. The teretz, so this is a basic kasha. How do you become good if you don't become good? Let me explain you the anuch of this kasha. The anuch of this kasha is that becoming good is not about doing more actions, right? This is called virtue ethics. Virtue ethics means there's the Rambam and alles for Magdosha. Basically the whole Tanya is built on this, although he makes it in such a funny way. The point is not to do more mitzvahs. The point is to be a different kind of person. That different kind of person happens to be does do mitzvahs. But the basic question is, what kind of person do you want to be, and not what kind of things do you want to do. Right? Stimmt? That's the Sodach Chassidus, Lafika Litvikus, who think that the thing is how many things you do. Sodach Chassidus says that a Yid is a kind of, is a sort mensch, that's how it is. A Yid is a sort mensch, right? The best kind, hopefully. It's a sort mensch, right? So therefore, it's not pshat, I'm the same person, I'm just going to have finished chas. A Yid ist noch nicht gerne chas, a Yid hat schon gerne chas, und zwei andere Yiden. Right? And somewhere in the middle, you're going to turn into 3/4 that person. And then you're not really accomplishing. That's why goals are not a good way of doing life. At least never worked for me, right? You look in the self-help book, they say, set a goal and get to it. For real goals don't work like that. Because set a goal and become it. And where is the setter from the goal, and how does he progress towards his goal, right? Basic problem. Right? Now, that's why we say usually that a Rebbe is the teretz for this kasha.
Yeah, it's easier to...
Why is it Rebbe? At least it solves a lot of the problem. Why? Because a Rebbe, that's what it says in Nakdom of the Tanya. Fadeim da Fayida Rebbe. This is all basic, see this. Fadeim da Fayida Rebbe. Why can't you just learn a Seifer? When you read a Seifer, it talks about Madraiges. It's you, kleine Nar, was lernt die Madraiges, and you don't understand what you get. You can't even be capable to become that person. Or you're going to be mefarsher according to your Narish understanding, and you're never going to get anywhere. And a Rebbe has the skill, because a Rebbe is not you, and he is a complete person, at least relative to you, right? He's showing you some kind of human being that you are not. So your goal is, I want to be more like him. It at least makes sense. Instead of saying, I want to be something that I don't know what it is, I want to be like the Rebbe. Makes sense. That's why a Leib the Rebbe is almost the only way that people ever change. I've seen
He wrote the Tanya.
Very good. That was a mistake because he was too much of a rationalist. He thought that you could replace a Saifa with a Rebbe somehow. You can't really. Of course, you can't really. And the Tanya only works if you kiliva. So that's what I want to say today. So this is a basic process. So if Bisman Azeh was the Satmar Rebbe said that there's no Shnachter Zachsidis and there's no real Rebbes, and even the ones that are real, they have so many issues. So what are we going to do? Basic problem. It's a real problem. There isn't a good solution to this problem. We discussed this many times. You have to either you become a Rebbe or you find a Rebbe. Afal can. Of course, the other solution is you're going to become like the 3 Twitter people that you follow. You always have a Rebbe. Shall just who it is, right? They said, "Nicht kein Rebbes." They said, "The Chassidim said the Kabul from Rabbi Meilech." Yeah, Rabbi Meilech had gesagt, "You want Rashi Zohar, right?" The Rabbi Meilech said that if there's no Rosh, this Tracher is the Rosh. That's why Rabbi Meilech the Kabul for the Chassidim that even if there's 10 Yidden, you have to make one the Rebbe. I and Ishrui is wusste was the Suten so sein. Anyone better than the Suten is already a better Rebbe, a good Rebbe. So maybe the Rebbe is worse than the Suten, then the Rebbe. But as long as he's better than the Suten, the word here is like Lacan and all these people taught, right? Human beings are mimickers by nature. Even Aristotle says, Aristotle against it, but he says that people are like that naturally. People they're noch maches. And therefore you're going to mach noch someone. Shal is naru. So this is a basic kasha. So what is it? You do that doesn't have a Rebbe. So the Gezoy like this. Zohar Kutush Pars Kedoshim says like this. I'm just quoting things from outside. If it says something else, you'll tell me later. That doesn't say.
We critique the
but I read it this morning.
Wanting to want.
What? The wanting to want? That's a solution? Maybe. It's something, but it really works by wanting. I think that all humans, it's like I want to be like that person who seems to want that. That's usually how it is. Like I want to have a minute. That makes sense because I think that person has what has the want at least.
It requires a human model.
Yeah, I think it always requires a human model. At least almost the only. That's why
they were looking to become good people.
I wrote a famous post again pro art scroll that you have to read the hagiographies because otherwise you have no perfect model and you become a worse person, right? Based on Plato. Remember?
I don't remember it in relationship to
I wrote such an article. It was have to do with last year Hanukkah time.
In second grade English, or that's
no. That's unlike all the weekly chavarim that I have that say we have to say the chesronis of the Gdolim. It's actually wrong because then you don't have a perfect model to follow. It doesn't matter if it was really such a person. It's not about history. It's about the chinuch.
It depends on if what you're going to choose to do is claim that what the good things are not. Meaning, what we should do is we should lie about Gedalim and say that they only did good things. We shouldn't say that the bad things that they did were good, right?
Yeah, or okay.
There's a right lie here.
Yeah. Let's not get into this discussion. I'm just making mad at Now, Kid says the Heilige Zohar. Okay, I'll read you the Zohar. You're not going to believe me. I don't like when Rabbunim do this when they read things out on their sheets, so I try not to do it. But maybe you people do like it. Do you?
Yeah.
So, the whole drusha about the lifnei I don't know. I said like this: what's the ta'id that he wants to learn the Torah? He doesn't find anyone to teach him. As this guy doesn't have payim and bias. So the Zohar like this: how to have a Torah, and he's trying to learn. He's megamgim ba begimgima de la Yuda. Krechet, my shtitzig mit sich. So the Zohar like this: kol mille v'mille salke v'ketshvrich yichudi b'yimille. Every word that the seed says goes up somewhere, and the Eibshter freit sich. What does the Eibshter do? And listen to us. The Eibshter takes these words that this seed and he plants it around a certain stream, river of water. And from these, wow. From these words become große Bäume. This is what it says. So but you can see in the end, it makes sense. This is the image, right? And today we learned in Darizal, I hope shot on these images, but anyways, the Eibshter named these words and he plants it into around the Nachal. What's this Nachal? Who knows? And it grows the Ikren Heros, the Ikren Arvai Nachal. These verquetschte Divrei Torah that God has to plant because he doesn't know how to plant them, we call Arvai Nachal. Das ist doch the Aruvas, the Yidden, das weiß ich stitzig mit sich, but they get planted and they become Arvai Nachal. Hadu the chsiva avusa tishga tumid, right? Of course, tishga, you know, l'shen shigoy, l'shen meshige. And I do with Amelech, Harani Hashem derkechu, ve'ahalech v'amitechu. I don't know, soon you're going to see what the pshat of this is. So it says like this, look. Ashray ver, this knows really the amitechu, oirach misha, he knows the ways and he goes in it. He's planting himself. Einzachayim, that's refi lechoyel and shayim. There's a Torah emes ois befi. There's Torah emes ois befi. What's the Torah not emes? Welche Torah is nicht emes? They say, yeah, the Torah is nicht emes. Who's the Torah is nicht emes? This guy that we're talking about. He doesn't have a good Rebbe. Or he even has a bad Rebbe. It says befersh. He's learning someone that's not Torah emes. He's a Rebbe, a guy to learn from Aachen. Torah is emes, nicht emes. So darfst du sagen Torah emes ois befi. But what if you don't have? So what if someone comes to my shir and I'm not nicht Rebbe, nicht Aachen. So what do? So it like this. So there's two problems, right? Either you don't have a Rebbe, you don't have any Torah, or you have a Rebbe and it's a bad Rebbe. If you don't have, you learn from anyone. Any human. Even if the guy doesn't know what he's talking about. According to the Zohar, people saying, like this, at least you're going to learn a little. Straight test, you'll know how to find the one. And then the Zohar brings of this, what the Zohar really means to say is that we get bald, what if someone, as we said in the Mishnah, if Asura Yashvin, the Doiskim Batoyer, Kim Dreibish, 3 and so on. What's if one person? Ochet. So what's the point? Why is it the Shnaim Shoshvim, Shloish Shoshvim, Asura Shoshvim? It was a waste of time, the whole Mishnah. You could have went to there. That it says, that's a David. Really you need a Asura, and really need a Rebbe, and you need a Minyan, and all these things. What if you don't have? Then was the Dreibish the helft Ochet. And what if you have a bad Minyan? There's a thought of the Lishma, Bulishma. From the person that learns the Falsha Torah, if you have a good Kavuna, Bulishma, Kim Digit the Torah. Lishma, if someone's Rebbe is a Shaygit, Mitachdeim Bulishma. That's what Reb Nussen said. Reb Nussen was very worried about Yidden that never are stuck by fake Rebbes. If you want, I could find you that shtickle, but I have to look in my group. And Reb Nussen of Breslev said, so what's the story? We keep on talking about these falsche Rebbes, and what are we going to do? So what is it? How do you know? So the Muslim said, what's a falsche Rebbe? I never say those schlechte Sachen. What's a gitte Rebbe? I never say those gitte Sachen, right? What do I care if your Rebbe is falsch? Just glad for my gitte Sachen, is a gitte Rebbe. So if you're, in other words, if you go with mimes, then the Rebbe can't hurt you. A Rebbe can only hurt you from the Oibbe Chochem. The Mushel, if you have a Rebbe, if you have a Rebbe, we zoek, dan moet kicken over the Rebbe, waarom is mijn Esther, kan dich nicht sagen. If you're too mistig, you know, it can be, the Rebbe doesn't mean that. And meint es auch will down to the Rebbe, was pinklich an meint, wir beginnen, ich weiß nicht. You're tom, if you're overgehochen, the Rebbe meint nicht, then you get ruined by a bad Rebbe. But if you came to the Rebbe because you're searching for God, and the Rebbe meint nicht God, that's a very small problem for you, because you're anyways going to accept the good things and not the bad things, because you have a good kavun. Stimmt? So anyway, this is Nachli 90. This is only Chizuk. Remaya with Acher, or any that goes to a falsche Rebbe. So that's the teretz.
Yeah, but who's going to teach him with those good intentions?
That's a good question. How did it start? Good question.
And also, what does it mean to be misdamet to the?
Auf dem steht Shamro Nafshi, ich wusste nicht. I was in the Chassidim von der falsche Rebbe.
I think that a genuine act of trying to learn is in itself transformative, right?
So it's true, this is chizik. It's not clear what the teretz here is. We see that they were worried about this problem. What if you have a bad Rebbe? This is chizik. It's not actually an answer to the problem, but I do think that it works. In this in the East, in the Buddha world, they say that if you were a good student, you can have a good teacher. When the student is ready, the teacher will appear. You know, have you heard this statement? And the beis hat gesagt, die Chassidim wollen sein wie Hand, aber Rebbe sollen sein wie Amul. Hello? Kann nicht so. I asked the Rebbe, so the point is, if you have a good kavuna, you get the right answer.
This whole thing that you need this human, this lady that was saying this basically, right?
Which lady?
With the goal.
Yeah, they look this Sachen.
But with this goal, because you have to transform, and that transformative person is not already that person that made the goal, etc. Right? So then, And then the Rebbe came in the whole business. So when the mitzvah chesed in the Rambam, right, where you medamet the bashefer, mahurach, like, what does it even want from you?
Forget. Okay, let's go further because this was all just an argument. I mean, that's why you have to have.
Just tell me what you mean with faket.
Ma'irachem is literal. In other words, you need to have a God. That's really the answer. We spoke about this. That's why, because a person is never going to become good without a perfect model, and because all human models are flawed, so the only good model is God. This is the Tat Shema Yisrael Hashem Echad. Nicht der Rebbe, nor der Eibishter.
Okay. But then you said you need that human
Das
model.
I get, so für dem du das Tiere zweimal wurde gesagt. Kus wegen da mit habe ich mit euch, kus wegen da mit da zusammen da kommen. Eigentlich ist gar nicht nahe. That's like the two wurde gesagt. Looking for two solutions to the similar problem. So I don't have a clear answer for you. It's a good question.
So that's what you can do. Like all the Chassidim make the Rebbe and the God.
Medaf beide. That's not a solution. Medaf beide, and that's what I don't think you can jump in both. You have to have a good kavun. I don't have a clear solution to this question. I think these, like all these things, they go. I get the kasha as best. There's a question here for how it works. I have to work and see how it works. Okay.
It's easier to understand in practice than it is to attentive practice.
Yeah, probably. This is some kind of question that you answer by doing, not by sitting by a sheet.
It's when you're eating really well and exercising, there's something.
It's important to read Spirit Tzadikim, and that's one of the biggest influences on people, or Spirit Hashem, whatever. And it's also important to know that the only real perfect model is God. And how these things interact, I don't know. Try it out and see how they interact. They somehow interact.
Well, with God as the perfect model and a human is...
And human is the only active model. The Christians have a solution for this.
God is an active human model.
Yeah, which is that God became human. Because they believe that in other words we wouldn't be able to follow God. But the Eden don't entirely say this. So we must have a different solution. There's the solution to the Rebbe is God. Or the Eibishter is going on a mensch. But since the Jews don't like that solution. Yeah, that's true. Let's go off topic. Let's go back to our sheet. Since we really tried to really learn, see, in the beginning we had a bad kavunim. We wanted to have all the sigyas and know all the shittas of each sigya, which doesn't sound like such a bad thing, but it's not the lishma. It was talking out lishma. What means simply, without my toilet from this ayat, it means simply that when you do certain things not for the sake of themselves, they're contagious. They make you catch the bug of doing that for themselves, right? If I pay you to learn a sach sidus, soon you're not going to have to pay you forever. It doesn't work. That's just how humans work. Catch famas. The reality is that it works like this, and I've seen it many times, many places work like this. Right? You go to somewhere for a silly reason, and you stay there for a different reason. Right? So listen. So this whole structure of learning, and it's going to be me, and I'm going to learn this shit and that shit and that shit, doesn't actually work. Because suddenly, in the middle of learning, we found out that we don't know a bunch of things. We don't understand basic ways of thinking about the world. And we don't even know which is also really the answer to how all these shit came to be and so on, of course. But we don't understand anything. And therefore what we need is not to learn a bunch of more sigyas, but we need to become different kind of people. Stimmt? That changed. And that changed the Kavunas element. Now we have a new Kavuna in our learning. And it changed the way in which it's organized. When we say organized, I mean both in how the course is organized and in how the people are organized. Meaning to say, two things, right? It's macht sense to sagen, said all of this. Said all of this. Hello. I didn't know how you stop these stupid Windows notifications. So do I have a
silent?
Yeah, okay. Now, like this. So the organization is like this. Our original organization was that we could sort of disember books, right? We're going to learn this sigir, but kicken with the Rav Sadiq and Zok. Then we'll learn what the Rambam says about it. Then we'll learn what someone else says about it, and so on. Now, turns out that is not a good way of being a student. It's a very bad way of being a student, and therefore I don't really think it's doable anymore.
Why?
Changed my mind. It's not really doable, or not in the way that I envisioned it being doable. Why? Because the Rav Sadiq going and gewähnt a Mensch, es gewähnt Rav Sadiq going and chitzt dem, got a shit to find chisa meisten, a shit to find oilem haben, and so on. Those things are true. But there was a yid to Rav Sadiq going. It's a kind of person. It's a kind of human being. Or even a kind of being. And if you want to understand even one word that he says, you have to, at least in some sense, be his student. And a student means someone that, how did the people in the East say, a student has to become dust at the feast of a teacher. That was their touch. A student has to become dust at the feast of his teacher. Before that, you're not a student. As Reb Nusen said, you know what's a good Talmud? Did I say this, Reb Nusen, already? What's the difference to me and the other Talmidim? The other Talmidim, ganz baradas, and the Rebbe gets it see. Reb Nusen, the Heilige Reb Nusen, hat gesagt, what's the difference to me and the other students? Why am I the only real student? He said like this, the other students, they understand something, and then when the Rebbe came, they understand noch a word, mechadish to them something, and so on. I had a different mahalach. I came to the Rebbe, said, I don't know nothing. I don't have any seichel. The Rebbe says one word, I have ein bissel seichel. He says two wörter, I have two sticklich seichel. And this is the only way to learn from a Rebbe. There isn't any other way. Of course, this is an exaggeration, doesn't mean you should become a Vestlebe, but you should, but this is the only way. Which means that you can't, the big thing is like this. I said this in the Akdama of my Shir and Zohar and the last series that I'm doing on Zohar now. This means that you have to let the Rebbe lead you instead of leading him. The big thing when you do what my Haveman and what Schwaz to do Sigis is that we're telling the Rebbe when he could talk. Right? We have these questions. We're going to frame the questions. What is the soul? How many parts does it have? We're going to come up with the questions. And then we can call Rambam. Come here. Get us down chance to read. So with the house. Oh, Sadia, come here. You tell us what you hold. Nachman, come. You verstehst? Mechitzef. He's looking for the Rebbe. You know what? Okay. And then he finishes and he says, you don't really understand. Sorry, now you're talking about another Sigi. Guy different. We'll talk about you later. Next year. Right? That's no way to treat a teacher. Achana says, Mokrish liebe Chofer, it's class. Als Schler Lishma. So müssen wir so not the hand to give. Any case, but that's the basic thing. The only way to listen to a Rebbe is to let the Rebbe set the order. That's why Lekitim are karsis, right? I already said this once, right? Because a Lekit, if you own Lekitim with him, you're telling him when and deleting it. What's wrong with you? You have to listen to the Rebbe. Of course the Rebbe sometimes says bad Wertler. Now I'm not saying that there isn't in every side for some Shvachere Torah, some Beis Torah, and even every teacher you go to see, sometimes is going to waste your time with Narishkeit. Of course. But that's what being a student is. You have to survive the Rebbe's Narishkeit. You're going to have to make the bitter, be an apple, like it says in the Mishnah. But
yeah, you also might want to understand what one word means, and that'll clarify.
Also, usually when you're... That's true. Also, another thing, it's true you have to be an apple, but usually the Talmidim Maschilim, they filter out the wrong things. It's like the Briskeruf said. You know the Briskeruf? The Briskeruf said, what's the pshat? And then he made the same mistake. But what's the pshat? That every mechaber brings a big cipher. And ganz besechtes Wochen. Okay? Every cipher has 2-3 good shticklich. The rest are, whatever, so why don't we ask everyone to just print their good shticklich? And then there's two different things. That if Landers said we should make a kovetz, everyone can send their good shticklich. And we'll have a licket of all the good shticklich and join. And then he says he realized that everyone sent the schwache shticklich because they're going to save the good shticklich for their cipher. The schwache shticklich okay. But the Briskeruf said that the problem is that the mechaber, we don't trust the mechaber that choose the good shticklich. He's going to choose the wrong ones. That's what happens when someone makes a small cipher with only the good shticklich. It turns out to be only the schwache shticklich. So therefore, macha ganze cipher will choose which are the good shticklich. Same thing with the Rebbe. Usually when you have to let the Rebbe give all the shtis, and then you could understand. But if you start off by filtering, you're usually going to filter the wrong ones.
Meaning I might understand how let's say a certain approach to something might teach me than if when I approach another thing what his strategy is or how he interprets a certain word even could matter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's also.
I think if you read
a lot of systems are useful
I
also.
skipped a chapter of a book because I saw it referenced, and I'm not even understanding the way the author's using his vocabulary there. And it turns out he spent the first 3 chapters clarifying exactly what he meant and didn't mean by this.
But I write good books.
Okay, so now I can go back to chapter 12 after reading chapters 1 through 11, and chapter 12 I could have understood it independently, but I would have substituted his meaning of the word with my meaning of the word, and I wouldn't have learned anything from the chapter except maybe tried to smush what he meant into what I already thought it meant, and maybe have some more reference examples.
That's exactly what we're kind of problems that we're talking about, 100%. So therefore,
that's not in the Sefer?
all the stencils are better to
Oh, the stencils now.
Not better, they're more creative, they're not whatever. Okay. Now listen. Some of the said that. I didn't learn enough things. It's not like his Sefer are the best lawyers, be real. They're good lawyers, not saying they're bad lawyers, but I'm not that they're the best.
He sounds very well.
Yeah, he writes pretty well, that's true. Now, he writes better than his Talmidim, that's also true. Whoever wrote the stencil can schreiben. That's under the problem. Okay, listen. The only way to learn something is to follow someone's order, at least somewhat. You can't come and tell them, do us the Yizuganig and so on. You can't impose your own order on it. That's a good way to not understand anything. So that's one Nikida about the structure, which Chazrani made a mistake, Tichiva. So therefore we turn that into a problem. Turns out 2 things. There's 2. We end up with 2 problems, and this is where we have to. We still didn't solve this 2 problems. But let me say the second thing, and then we'll go back to the problem that I still have. So that's Legaba the sea. So in other words, that's why from the last 2 shirim, last 2 series, we're just reading a Sefer and try to look source for him so we could end at some point. Because if I read Moed Nevoichem, I have a sheet already for 3 years, and I'm up to chapter 70. That's Shem, we're going to go until then, but that's a very long way, and nobody really wants to do that. Nobody's coming along with me. But that's really the way to do it. Makes sense? But Shmuel Prukim is a short Sefer relatively, and we're going to learn, after Shmuel Prukim, we'll learn Sefer Hamad. That's my basic plan. The Sefer Hamad, it's relatively short. And to expand it,
and then you went away.
There's a reason for that, but it's all into this in this Mahalach. Okay, there's a reason for that, but that's not gefilig now. If I learn, I'm not. Nothing is very extreme, you know. Anyways, no, there's a reason for that, but that's not, I already said the reason probably in some shit. No, and then the same thing. It also turns out that we need a different way of being. The shir has to be weggestellt in a different way. Not only the Seider limit is different, the loike have a mena, also the shir itself, the Seider Talmidim has to be different. Which means, and here I start saying very scary stuff, so I shouldn't say them on my video, but which means that we have to, I'm not going to say it in the stupid way that I thought of, which means that we can't really sell courses. Or maybe we could, but it's going to be some kind of shlei lishma. Maybe we could. Now, instead is going to be for the next 3 months a course in Howell about, you were not curious about if Baal Shem Tov was right at Vilna Gaon, come, I'll teach you. Which means that maybe I will still do that, just shlei lishma is wichtig, but that's not really what I'm doing. Really what we're doing is something like, there's a yeshiva shesham loimdim. What? Who knows? There's a yeshiva where we try to be students of our teachers, the ancients and the medievals or something like that. This is what our yeshiva is. And being a student means learning for a bunch of years, maybe for a lot of years, and taking a lot of time to figure out very small things, and in all kinds of ways, maybe by reading whole books, maybe by having a lot of discussions and trying to smash what they're saying with what we think and get somewhere, all kinds of things. But that's what it is. And what that also means that it's something that, like I say, you need consent, but you can't consent because you don't know what you're consenting to. But it's something, a different kind of commitment, right? It's a different kind of commitment. And we do have to figure out the small level of that commitment, how it looks or what it means. But it's a different kind of commitment. I'm asking you to become a Talmud, not of me, that would be very dumb, but of the Sviras, of Sophia, become a lover of wisdom, right? And that's a kind of life, it's a kind of person. Some people are that already, and we want them to come and join us. We have friends or some people are there already potentially, and some active potential already, like first potential, second potential, and just have to actualize it. And some people are not that, and need to be converted to that. But that's what we want to do, really. Which means that it's very hard. I think the way that people generally do this is like opening a yeshiva. This is this yeshiva, and this is a yeshiva where the Oidam is Tachsidim or something, so and so, or such and such. And why do you go to that yeshiva? Also, most people are always going to come Shlei Lishma. It's not possible to start with Lishma. The Oidam ask Shlei Lishma. Okay, they come because it's a good yeshiva, or because it's friends there, or whatever. Or because they're curious, they want to know things. But it's going to be Bulishma. But there has to be at least a structure where this Bulishma can happen. Maybe we don't have to talk about it so much. Maybe it's a sad, ich weiß nicht. But that's the Nekida. That's about the Seidra limit, Derech limit. I don't know how long I went on about this already. There's the Sad. Oh, now I'm going to tell you the question that I still have. It's not really a question, it's just, there's something of a question here which we should think about. The question is, we get into a question. Because the whole Mahalach that we had before is based on the idea that we could learn a lot of shittas. Was very important. Why is it very important? Like Reb Nuchem holds that the Yidden are Tzimtzum, they only know about one shitta, and they think that everything else matches with that, and all kinds of different submission. And it's very important to know that there's different ways of doing things. Why is it important, by the way? Good question, right? Why is it important? What so schlecht will be? Ich see them, we'll just learn shittas Lakita Maran and shine. It seems to be a derech that has better result than my derech that I tried to do. We should ask this question very seriously.
When you say better result, what do you mean by that?
It makes people better. It makes more people into better people according to their definition of what a good person is, but it makes people, transforms people in a direction of the good, and some mostly for the most sense, right? Someone that's starach, the good according to them at least, right?
I don't know what that means.
We're aspiring to the good according to us.
Okay, but that's already very specific, right? So let me try to explain better. My original all these things type of fetish and like my original dreams. I shouldn't be talking all of this and my original thing is like this. There's a lot of teachers. Let's talk in the heimische Welt, but the bench was kind of Yiddish, obviously. Yeah? There's a lot of teachers. And there's not only, I'm not the first teacher or the first student of Jewish thought. I'm not the first one and not the last one. There's a lot. You know their names. All kind of Yidden that verkauf Pneumius Teure, Machsheves Teure, ich weiß was, all kind of words and names that they call it. Many of them. So what do I want to do different? I want to do something differently than that. This is my having, and I have a certain clarity about this now. Right? You could go to Chabad, they teach Chabad Toys, they go to Bersel, they teach Bersel Toys, they could go to Rabbi Gru, Chvais Shapiro, whatever, Maral they are, Hutner, they teach you Hutner Toys. What kind of people? They're all doing good things. I'm very much respectful of them because they're people that think and they have a certain understanding of how the world works, of how the Torah works, of how life works, and they implement it. They're all Baalei Das, all of them are people that think outside of a box, so to speak. All interesting people. Right? And I was not happy with any of them. If I was nicht, you should remember, it says in my prospect. Why am I not happy with all of them? The answer is that they're all dogmatic. And the way I understood it then was, they all are teaching in only one shitta. That's what I said? I said something else. They're all dogmatic. What did I say? I'll tell you how I think I understood it. They're all dogmatic, it's true, they're all dogmatic, and they all teach in the way of like, you have to believe what I say. The Rebbe gesagt, even if the Rebbe is some schnook from last week, ich zog, and people believe him for some reason, because he has charisma usually, and he makes good jokes, or good batchunas, and his drishim match, and so on. And what they don't have is space, I'm going to say it closer to how I say it now, space to think. This is really how I say it now. But really what's bothered me dogmatic, and what bothered me more is something like, they don't treat you as an adult, right? That's another one of my slogans. They don't treat you as an adult, which means they don't open up the questions that they talk about. They close them. This is already a better way of saying it than I said it there. Right? Harav Hutner tells you a lot of Torahs about Rosh Hashanah, but it doesn't tell you any questions about Rosh Hashanah. Which means that nobody could even talk with him really, because of the way he teaches. You can't argue with him. Like I was having an argument yesterday in the medrash. Why people, like in certain medrash where there's two shirs, a shir negla and a shir chassidus or whatever, chassidus Torah. How come about the shir negla, odem redt aran, odem dingt sich, but not by the chassidus Torah? Good question, right? Why not? So Rav Oinim thinks, because Shashidus Torah is a Meichetais, okay? Doesn't make, I'm Meshiv al Adrish. But the real reason is because...
There aren't any available questions.
What's the real reason of I'm Meshiv al Adrish?
I don't know if that's the reason of that. This understanding of Meshiv al Adrish, it doesn't mean that. Is because the Oilim versteht nicht Shashidus Torah. If you didn't learn the Sig of that the Nigla Torah was about, you're not going to be able to answer. You're also going to think, Meichetais. So he says, if you learn the Sig, there's some criteria, right? There's a criteria of truth, right? It's outside of his chattel. There's a criteria. You know the Gemura, you know you went to Yeshiva, you know somehow how Savudas of Gemura are supposed to work. So you have an outside criteria. You're not just receiving from the guy that says the chattel. You actually know what thing he's talking about before him. And there's a criteria outside of him that tells us what is the correct chattel. Then you can argue with him, right? Now Shashidus Torah have also a criteria. Just you don't know them, you're in Amuritz. And maybe the Reiden is auch the Amuritz, sometimes the Reiden is not an Amuritz, and still nobody argues. Why not? Because the Reiden doesn't teach you the criteria. He just teaches you the Shtickle Torah. Doesn't teach you what the problem was that he came to from the Shtickle Torah. Doesn't teach you the sources. None of these things. There's two things. Either sources or basic problems, logical problems. They don't teach any of these things, which means that nobody can argue with them. So all these things come together, and I want it to be different.
The answer.
All these things come together to teaching in a very dogmatic way, which does help. I do think that it helps. Unlike what it's not. My main problem is not that it's Meichetais. It teaches you true things, I think. But the bigger problem is that it doesn't let you learn. It isn't learning. This is Tefillah. Ich weiß nicht, was das ist. Das ist nicht kann lernen. Right? So I said, so what's the solution to this? What's the solution?
Teach people the questions.
What was the solution? The solution was, part of the solution was...
What do you mean it's not learning? First of all, hold on. What do you mean it's not learning? If the point of learning is to be a better person and it's making you a better person, so what's the point of not... Why? And also, what's the problem if it's not learning?
Good question. Good question. Good question. Good question. The point of learning is not only to be a good person. That's the point of some of learning. The point of practical learning, the point of theoretical learning is to know. That's number one. Number two, there are some people like me.
Just to know? Like to know? Just
like
more information?
Not information. Information is not a good word. But information, literally, yes. Being informed, receiving a form. But not in the modern sense of information.
Information you can get from the Shashidus Torah, right?
Not that, but exactly. To be a knower. Now, Dreikes, the Brother Dalmikis, Schlet Tanya, it's not to congress that Dreikes from Wissen, because it's on all sides. Whatever. Because Dreikes is Sachders, because Eichel Maskell Miskell. Listen. So, what are we saying? So, this is the problem. Now, we thought we were going to solve this problem in a similar way to how the academics solve the problem, the Jewish studies academics, I mean to say, right? We're going to teach you nicht door the Baal Shem Tov and der Oche de Vilna Gaon, and therefore you're going to understand the Dutzut, and you're going to know maybe that the both Mechilik and Pshat and Zohar, so you can learn also the Zohar. You can be Talmud Chochem, right? Basically, you're going to be Talmud Chochem, Nam Murit. So Ashtikal Zohar, to 5 Pshutim. Okay, we can be that. This is a better Pshat. That's a more Mistabradige Pshat. Bestimmt besser in the Wette, bestimmt besser in the Seichel, and so on. So we have a Sigil like a Talmud Chochem. That's the basic framework that I was thinking of. By the way, your question about why is it good to know is a very serious question. Why is it important? There's another reason. That's one answer I forgot to tell you. The second answer is, and I think that this is too much of the truth in that answer, is that it's two as I mentioned, they're like Balagahava, like me. And it doesn't pass them to believe something that someone tells them. So in order to make them a good person, or even in order to make them know anything, you can't just tell them, just for them, they're going to believe it. They're going to believe you. Why should I? So you have to tell them, kicks, there's a machloikes, and there's a pshat, a problem, you make it something sophisticated, and then they believe you. That's another reason why it's important. Maybe it's not important if people wouldn't have that bad mid of Gav, but I don't know if such a bad mid. Maybe it's a mid toiva, and it's just been a feeling. That's it.
Come again? What did you say? Maybe
I don't know if such a bad mid. Maybe it's a good mid.
Almost looked like it's the eggs, right?
Might nicht this, no. This mid of the past mich nicht zu gleiben, was these oaks. I'm not sure. Like I said, every mid, every mid has a tzad toiv, but a tzad ra. I don't know. Maybe there's some good in this.
No, but the Gemara says that you need to have this mid. For Talmud Chochem, this means this.
Maybe, exactly, maybe. I'm saying it's not simple. I don't know. Ich kann jetzt genug denken.
The fact that the definition from Gava doesn't exactly mean that I can then also understand Fananava. It doesn't work the opposite way either. You can't humble, if you were ready about Gava first, you can't humble your way into knowing either.
Okay, true. So we're stuck. So we have to go with our way. The kids. So this was our plan. Now I think of it differently now. What do I think differently? I don't think that that's the solution. Why? Mainly because when you're trying to stand outside of the system, in other words, you're trying to make yourself the Rebbe of all the Rishonim, all the Achrayim, you can tell everyone, via stimmt, you're not learning anything. There's no outside anyways to stand in. You know, right? What's outside of the world? Nothing. There's no place. There's maybe God, but besides for that, right? Remember the paradox of where the end of the world is? Anyways, listen. There's no answer, but that's not the main reason. The main reason is that you don't learn anything that way. You don't actually learn. You don't understand. When someone comes and tells you, I'm not going to tell you Tamashir. Shit is ha-mekabulim. Ich kann dir sagen, der Rambam in der Mekabulim. Der Mensch verteilt nicht der Rambam nicht der Mekabulim. Interesting story, that's what happens. Even if he wants to tell you, no, I think that really they're not, sind beide heilig, und geht lernen von beide von sei, Vater versteht nicht beide von sei. Because he's against standing outside. In other words, ich meine, du sei aim and side aim. Emes? Beide von sei verstehen nicht, kann eine von sei Schritte von sei lernen aus. Because in the end of the day, they're both standing outside. They both don't really want to learn anything from the people they're supposedly learning from. They're very mak, but they never actually, by mistake, learn something. They never be converted.
And you don't have this problem? Dich specifically. The person that we're supposed to be. Yeah?
Right, so therefore we end up, so here's I get here. So how did I start
the
with
point is to
shtickle?
be a clinical bystander who looks at people and like dissects their opinions as things to be compared and not engaged with, right? You should engage with the things you're
Right,
learning.
so how did I start the shtickle? Then instead of learning the matter, it's like this. So there's really two solutions, and it's very serious. That's why I said I still left with a problem. I hope I'm still didn't lose my thread. That's where I said that I still have a problem. What's the problem? That is that you can't actually be learning all the shittas. Can't actually. You can only learn one shitta. Chalavai ein shitta. This nice shifa that we have in the Gan Verstein, Sai Date and Sai Yana, not really true. It's impossible.
Why do you say it's
Because you can't learn things from the outside. Standing from the outside is another way of saying not learning. You can only learn things from the inside. Which means, ich will learn in Breslev, darf man sagen Breslev. Or if will learn Chabad, darf man sagen Lubavitcher. Nicht sagen Lubavitcher doesn't actually help. You have to really be a Lubavitcher, right? Putting on Lubavitcher is going. You have to be a bevatel yourself. Ich see them call it bittel. It's a bad word. You have to really listen to what the Lubavitcher Rebbe is saying. Instead of standing outside and telling him, being mevaker him, you have to be a shemaya. First step. Of course, from inside the oath doesn't mean you're going to believe everything he says. That's another way of standing outside, by the way. Standing inside means standing all the way inside. Just like the Rebbe has doubts, you're also going to have doubts. But the means the Rebbe glaubt alles, der glaubt auch alles, so why should you, right? But you have to be all the way inside, which leads to a shtickle question of how you could learn more than one thing. Because it turns out, and people that get converted, often actually this is what happens to them. People that learn a long time from outside, and then they finally get converted by something, usually they get stuck into one thing. This is something that happens all the time. You could watch it in the biographies of a bunch of different people. Now that doesn't mean that they stop reading anyone else, or that they stop listening to everyone else. But it does mean that they become really this thing, and you could say it, that they see everything else from the glasses of that thing. Which is really what that Rebbe, or anyone is doing. Right? But of course, every shit allows you to read everything. I'm not making charum, I'm reading wrong things. But you're going to read it according to the concepts, according to the basic categories of thought, like I called it, that you learned from one Rebbe. Stimmt? And the Gemara steht a bisschen anders. The Gemara says that you could learn Svura from two Rebbes, which is the opposite of what I'm saying. So, this is... No, I think it's more like what I was saying, the half a minute that I had. That Gemara stems a lot better with the half a minute, but I know how to solve this. I get a cash off the Gemara. So, in any case, I have cash off me. I have to know what it's talking about and so on. That's very a lot of work. So, at minimum, if you want to listen to anyone, you have to listen to it as a Talmud of that person. Maybe you could be, that's why I'm saying, because the Gemara says that you could be a Talmud of two people, I don't know if it's really true that you can't be a Talmud of two people. Maybe the opposite. It's true that it's going to become a certain shiliv in your soul. It's not really going to be separate in your soul. But maybe these, in this sense, maybe these people that say that you could have everything are right. Not everything from the outside, but everything from the inside. That's a different kind of everything. Maybe it's possible. And that maybe is the real way. But at least you have to learn things very sincerely from the inside and betar Talmud, nicht betar choiker. Because the chakrim, just from their attitude, are not going to understand anything. Macht sense? This is a problem was gewoon geblieben mit. So, kille, weil ich habe noch alles die Shigun, und ich will sein Rebbe, a Talmud von jeder einer, and it's not only a Shigun, because all of these people have good things to say. So really, we have to find in some sense, there's the only way out is to have like some real theory that includes everything and explains where everyone is wrong or incomplete and so on. That's what it ends up being, I think. If you want to learn more than one thing, and you have to learn more than one thing, otherwise you're taka typisch. Du kannst eitze. Ich sage dir Fakt, Lachtin. Kennst du typisch? That's I told you that this is the problem that I still have. This is a paradox that I don't have. I think that the solution is in action, which, like we said before, not in theory. Maybe when we'll do a lot, we'll have some nice words to be malabish in it, but there's still a sort of paradox. But Al Kapunim, this is why when you ask me, should I learn Zohar, should I learn the Rambam? These things are a little problematic. Verstehst du was? Weil man geht anyways noch lernen eine von sei in line und der andere lot jene. So, like, I don't know, maybe it's something in between, because we're going to learn from two people, so we could learn more than one thing. That's what I'm saying. But that's why there's a question here. There's a question that remains here in this question. You understand? But for sure, the halacha is not they should become like mitzvah tzumim. That's for sure. For sure. Because you don't even understand your own Rebbe if you don't learn other Rebbes. That's also true. And for sure, the main answer is...
Why? Because you don't know where he's coming to, like, come lafike?
Yeah, you don't appreciate it that much. The main answer is in our life, not in these books or something like that. Which means if we get together or ourselves and read a bunch of different things continuously, that's really the answer. And keep on doing that, and that's the real answer. But the Purim is very different than the image that we had before. That's the big change. Verstehst? Schein. Ad kan Kuf Aleph.